So, good afternoon, everybody, or good whatever time it is wherever you are, and welcome to Kagyu Lineage Edinburgh. And so we're going to start this session on the meeting of Milarepa and Gampopa. But before that, let us do the introductory prayers, the prayers to the root Lama and to the lineage. O glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. Great Vajradhara Naro Marpamila Dhamma Lord Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, holders of the 4 elder and 8 younger lineages, Rinchen Khandro and the Salpa, glorious Drukpa, and so forth, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, to the Dakpo instruction lineage, the peerless protectors of wanderers. Kagyu Lamas, I supplicate you, I uphold your lineage. Grant the blessings of your liberating lives. Just as revulsion is taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator clings not to food and riches, and has severed the ties to worldly life. Grant your blessings for detachment from honor and gain. Just as devotion is taught to be the head of meditation, this meditator constantly prays to the Lama, who opens the vault of pith instructions. Grant your blessings for uncontrived devotion to well forth. Just as non-distraction is taught to be the body of meditation, this meditator simply remains without altering the fresh essence of whatever thought arises. Grant your blessings for parting from the concept of meditation. Just as thought is taught to be in essence Dharmakaya, for this meditator unhindered manifestation dawns. Nothing whatsoever dawning as whatever may appear. Grant your blessings to realize inseparable samsara nirvana. May I never in future lives part from authentic lamas, and embracing ever the glory of Dharma. May I perfect the qualities of the levels and paths, and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. Today is going to be a little bit different to the previous sessions because it's incredibly important, this meeting of Gampopa and Milarepa, important not only for them but for the lineage and therefore for us. So it does require a bit more narrative to contextualize who they were, well, especially with Gampopa, because Gampopa was already quite a mature person when he met Milarepa, so we need to know something about his previous life before he met Milarepa. And so there'll be more narrative, and there will be, of course, there'll be the songs as well, but there'll be a bit more emphasis on the narratives so that we know the circumstances, because that really brings it all to life for us, and it's important that we know this. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit about Gampopa. In fact, what we'll start with is the prophecy about Gampopa, because in his previous lives he was already very much on the Bodhisattva path. So we need to know who he was from the prophecy. Namo Guru. Noble Gampopa, the supreme heart son of Lord of Yogis Shepherdorji, that's Milarepa, was foretold in the matchless prophecy made in Guru Mapa of Lodrac's Song of Realisation, explaining the omen of 4 pillars that appeared in the Jetson's dream. So Milarepa had a special dream. He asked his Guru Mapa to interpret the meaning, and so this prophecy comes from that. So the Yidam, Vajrayogini is the main Yidam of the Kagyu lineage, also prophesied to the Jetsun, Milarepa, that he would have 25 close disciples who were siddhas, very evolved, spiritually evolved, and that they would be like the sun, moon, and stars. Among those, that prophecy said that Gampopa would be supreme, like the orb of the sun. So we know already that Rinchen Khandro was prophesied as the moon-like disciple, heart sun, and Gampopa would be like the sun. His influence would be enormous. In general, the perfect Buddha also prophesied Gampopa many times in the Mahayana sutras, such as in the King of Samadhi Sutra in particular. So this is from the Buddha himself, his prophecy. And he's talking to Ananda, who's one of his chief disciples. Ananda, in the future time, after I have died, in the northern mountain range, there will be a monk called the Physician. He has served the previous victorious ones especially well, and has shown service and respect to many hundreds of thousands of Buddhas, previous Buddhas before our history. He has perfectly entered into the Mahayana and has entered it in order to bring benefit and happiness to many beings. He has studied thoroughly, holds the Pitaka of the Bodhisattvas, and praises the Mahayana. He will be an excellent teacher of the Mahayana. So that's the highest praise you could think of, coming from the Buddha. And so according to this prophecy, at this time when the 5 degenerations flourish, when everything starts to go a bit corrupted and things are not working out so well, in this land of snows, that means Tibet, in the north, the one known as the Dakpo Lajje. Now Dakpo is the area, it's the name of the place, and Lajje is physician. So the physician of Dakpo is renowned in samsara's 3 levels, and for him, the offering banner of renown is waved. So this offering banner, you see it in the tankers, or even when a High Lama comes, they will have these special banners. So it's this beautiful banner is of his renown, because he's going to become very famous. Within the state of luminosity, the Jetsun, Milarepa, saw this Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, this great Bodhisattva, who manifests the realization of the 10th bhumi, so the 10th level. That's the very highest level, just before full and complete enlightenment. So he's extremely high level already. By the blessing of his samadhi and through summoning him with his mind's emanations, this is Milarepa's mind's emanations. He's kind of connecting on a sort of spiritual level, telepathy, if you like. Gampopa came into the presence of the Jetsun. This biography, which tells how he was like the son of the Buddha's teachings and established sentient beings in unsurpassed enlightenment, is just like a mere drop from the ocean. So from that we get the highest praise from the highest beings you could possibly wish for. We know that this Gampopa is an extremely important person, to the spiritually important person. So we're going to now look into something before he meets Milarepa, just to get some idea of his early life. So he was born in Tibet, in the Sewa Valley of Nyal. His father was a doctor, and he was married, and his wife gave birth to a son, and he had two sons, in fact, and the eldest one was called Dharma Drac, and that is Gampopa. That was his early name. So his father was very skilled in worldly affairs and trained his son to also be skilled in worldly affairs and also to become a doctor. So he was trained as a physician from being quite young. And also he studied the mantra tradition of the Nyingma school. So he was already studying the Dharma at 15 years old. He studied this mantra tradition. And so he went on, he became very learned in the Nyingma tradition and supremely skilled in the 8 branches of his father's Dharma medicine. Medicine and Dharma in Tibet are very much intermingled. Then at the age of 22, Dharma Drac, as he was then called, got married to a beautiful daughter of a powerful chieftain. She gave birth to both a son and a daughter, and it was all looking very rosy until there was this kind of epidemic in that area. And despite the fact that he was a physician, he couldn't do much to save them. It was just beyond that. Or you could also say it was karma. But anyway, at one point his son passed away, and so Dharma Drac carried away the body to be buried. When he returned to his home, his daughter had also passed away. And then several days after that had passed, his wife became bedridden with the same illness. So, although he performed every medical treatment and Dharma ritual, there didn't seem to be anything that helped. And unlike the son and the daughter, his wife remained ill for quite a long time. She remained sick, and even though the time of her death came, she really did not wish to die. She was clinging on for dear life, you could say. And the Lord, he's sometimes described as the Lord, Gampopa, not yet called Gampopa, Dharma Drac. He read volumes of scriptures to her and tried to sort of pacify her mind and put her mind in the right place. But even though he did all this, and though all her body's strength was at its end, he thought to himself, and yet still she does not die. She must be attached to something. He wanted her to die at this point because there was no cure and she was at death's door, but he thought she must be still attached to something that's causing her to cling on even though there's all this suffering. And he said to her, it is due to not understanding the composite nature of samsara that sentient beings suffer. Those who wish to linger in samsara, which is without any true happiness, are afflicted. And so he's become very disheartened that, she's still suffering with this. And so she replies, he says to her, whether you live or die, there is nothing for me to do but practice the genuine Dharma. And she says that now I am ready to die. You've told me that. And she says, I have no attachment to land or riches. I'm not attached to the things of this world. Or wealth or anything like that. But Lajje, physician, she calls him physician, I do have attachment to you. So that you are not seduced by another woman, will you swear to practice will you become a monk? Will you swear to practice the genuine Dharma? And she says, Laji, you must practice wholeheartedly the genuine Dharma. And so she doesn't want him to have another wife or anything like that, and she wants him to just be the Dharma practitioner that he already is. And because he's her only attachment, that's why she can't let herself go. And so he says, even if you do recover, husband and wife will eventually part. If you die, I will only practice Dharma and will not take on any other wife. So she became pacified by that, and she did die quite soon afterwards. So after he'd taken care of his wife's affairs, though he had no immediate family left, he thought, right, now I must meditate and I must practice the Dharma. So he did got his affairs into order, and he took some provisions for his Dharma practice, and then he went to a monastery in Penyul called Gyachak-ri, and there, in the presence of Lama Gyalchilwa, he became a monk. So he took ordination. He took full monastic ordination. He didn't do it in stages. He took the full ordination and was given the name Sonam Rinchen. So he was given the name Sonam Rinchen. So he wasn't called Gampopa at that point. I think it's Milarepa that gives him that name. So now he's got the ordination name of Sonam Rinchen. And then from Geshe Shawa Lingpa and Jadol Zimpa, he received many Dharma teachings. And it goes on to have a long list of Dharma teachings. Now, after having received all these Dharma teachings, which were in the Kadampa tradition, he said, right, now I must practice. I've had all these teachings, I really must practice. But he remained at that monastery of Gyachak-ri. So now sometimes he's going to be referred to as the Lord. So it says here, the Lord had exceedingly great wisdom and compassion, and his avarice and attachment were very, very small. He had almost nothing, just a trace of attachment. He had extremely great faith and diligence, and very little laziness or sloth. During the day, he exerted himself in the action wheel of Dharma activity and the study wheel of hearing and contemplating. Then at night, he turned the renunciation wheel of meditation. So all the different kinds of Dharma activities of whatever was helpful in the monastery, and then the learning. So body, speech, and mind, you could say he used his body, he used his speech and hearing for the teachings, and then in the evening he would meditate. His body, tireless in such virtuous activity, was never harmed by insects or parasites, and although he only ate once every 5 or 6 days, he was never hungry. So he had a very high level of practice already, and his body always experienced bliss. He could sit within a single stretch of samadhi, of meditational abiding, for many days. Not a few minutes like us, or maybe an hour if we're very, very lucky. Coarse attachment and aggression had disappeared. When sleeping, his dreams showed the signs that appear for someone who is approaching the 10th bhumi. He was virtually at the 10th bhumi, as explained in the Sacred Golden Light Sutra. So at one point, while he was in this meditative experience, there appeared in his vision a dark-skinned yogi with a big body. He carried several tattered rags upon his shoulder, this yogi, in his vision, and a bamboo walking stick in his hand. And in the vision, the yogi placed his hand upon Gampopa's head, which in the East is not usually a good thing to do, because it's the sort of like the aperture of Brahma. You don't normally place your hand on someone's head unless you really know what you're doing. So this yogi in the vision placed his hand upon Gampopa's head and spat on him. Only you definitely wouldn't do that, and then he left, the yogi left. With this, Gampopa's shamatha meditation became excellent, and the certainty of vipassana grew within him, of insight meditation. So his meditation became excellent, and then his insight also grew within him. And with an experience of great joy, his mind became very clear. Seeing some of his fellow monks, he explained what had appeared to him. They said, "Oh, if visions such as yogis and villagers appear to a fully ordained monk like you, who've kept your discipline so perfectly, it's the work of magic, like black magic kind of thing. And there's a danger that obstacles will come. You should go to the abbot and request the transmission of white achalanatha and receive the blessings of making torma offerings to the ordained sangha in this puja practice. If you do this, that will ward off any obstacles." So they were worried. They thought, well, this doesn't sound right at all. This yogi spitting on him, this can't be right. So they told him to do all these rituals. And which he did. He went and received this transmission from the abbot, and he made 100 torma offerings to the sangha and did mantra recitations. But the vision of the yogi came to him more often than before. So he kept seeing this yogi in his visions. Now, it's a bit like being in a movie, so we now cut to Milarepa. So we're leaving Gampopa at that scene. Now we cut to Milarepa. So Milarepa at that time was staying in the Kiputnima fortress at Poto Red Rock, and he was with his disciples, Rinchen Khandro, that's Rinchen, Shiwa Seben Repa, Drigom Repa, Dzong Tunpa, and so on. In other words, the greatest of his heart sons, all the really top students. Also, the students Tseze, who was a female student, and Kagyu, who were from Drin, so they get the feeling they were lay practitioners, and others were also gathered there. So it was quite a big gathering of his disciples. While turning the wheel of Dharma, of both the provisional and definitive meaning, that's like the relative and absolute meaning, the senior reppers, the one, the Rinchen and the most senior ones, said to the Jetsun Milarepa, now that the Jetsun's body has grown old, if you should pass on to another pure realm, we will need someone who can come in in your stead to dispel our hindrances and enhance our practice and be an object of merit for benefactors. So they're thinking ahead. It's a little bit cheeky, I think, to say that's directly to him, sort of, you're getting old, come on, we have to think of the future, and we will need somebody to take your place and, to be able to be our object of merit for the benefactors. Jetsun, they continued, Jetsun, in whomever you have trust to be able to do this, it would be fitting for you to give them the instructions completely, like filling a vase, and invest them with power. Without this, the current gathering of disciples will not be able to carry on and protect our lineage. So it's almost like a sort of hinting, like maybe it's time you gave one of us, or a few of us, your entire teaching so that we can carry on the lineage. Their intention was that the lineage should not be lost, but nevertheless it was a little presumptuous to sort of remind him of this. This is maybe what he should be doing, as if he didn't know what he should be doing. The Jetsun, slightly displeased, said, there is a disciple who will be able to spread and make my activity flourish. You could almost see them perking themselves up and wondering, is it me, is it me? And it doesn't say that, it's just I'm imagining that. I will look to see where he is tonight. Come back tomorrow morning and I will tell you all. The following morning, the Jetsun arose earlier than usual and summoned all the disciples to gather in front of him, and so all the reppers and the other students came. The Jetsun said, "The noble being who will hold my teachings, the vase who will be filled with the key instructions and who will be able to spread the teachings in the 10 directions, is one who has been ordained as a fully ordained monk with the name Hlaje, which means physician. He will come very soon." You can imagine the faces dropping. "Last night in my dream, this son he's calling him his son, was carrying an empty white crystal vase, and I filled it with amrita, that's sacred liquid, from my own white silver vase until his was completely full. A son was born to this old father. He will be like the son of the Buddha's teachings, the sun in the skies, some of you, and will be able to benefit limitless beings." Ha ha, he laughed and sang this song of realization. So now we look at the first song of realization. And as always, he starts by prostrating to the guru, which is all the gurus, but especially his guru, his root guru, Marpa. "I prostrate to the Lord Gurus. I supplicate the one who is so kind. The milk of the white lioness of the East is certainly milk with greatness and potency, but there is no greatness before its potency is experienced. The greatness one knows after it is experienced is what is experienced by Indra, the lord of Devas. The leap of the striped tiger in the south is certainly a leap with greatness and might, but there is no greatness before vying with that leap. The greatness known after vying with it is seen in Dombi Haruka's ride. The bile of the fish in the west is certainly a bile of bitterness, but there is no bitterness before experiencing it. The bitterness after one experiences it is only experienced by the Nagas Gao and Jogpo. The powerful turquoise dragon in the north certainly has greatness and powerful strength, but one cannot feel his greatness and strength before vying with this strength. The greatness after vying with him is seen in the vying of the champions Laga and Luga. The milk of the lioness in the east must be poured with a ladle of precious gold. It cannot be poured into an ordinary container. If you pour it into an ordinary container, the container will break and its contents will spill. The key instructions of Lords Naropa and Maitripa are certainly very profound. Though this is so, there is nothing profound before one has meditated. Only after meditating can one understand its profundity. My Venerable Father Marpa has received them, and Milarepa has meditated upon them. A few words of Milarepa's meditative experience, though they certainly will liberate the vital points, are not given to unworthy vessels. If a worthy vessel comes, I will give them freely. If my son the teacher arrives, I will give them to him. So that's quite a few different ways of letting them know they're not that person because they haven't got the experience. It's not that he doesn't like them or he thinks badly of them or anything like that, but they're not that vessel. So we'll just briefly go through this. So the milk of the white lioness in the east, it's certainly milk with great potency, but there is no greatness before it's experienced. If you haven't experienced it, it's just hearsay, isn't it? Whatever we hear about, somebody might say it's like this, but until we've experienced it, it's just what somebody said. We haven't got that experience ourselves. And all of these things are similar metaphors. So the leap of the striped tiger in the south. If you haven't actually vied with that tiger, you don't really have an understanding of how it is. And he uses he said you'd have to be seen like in Dombi Haruka's. Right, so Dombi Haruka was an Indian Mahasiddha, originally a king, who left his kingdom to become a yogi in the forest. And then his kingdom, having fallen into disarray, he was summoned by the Brahmins to return. And when he left the forest, apparently with no intention to return to his throne, he is said to have been seen together with his consort riding a ferocious, pregnant tigress. So not only had he vied with it, he was riding it. He was riding the tiger. So you could say he has definitely overcome that and had great experience. So he's using that as a metaphor. And the same of the bile in the fish in the west is certainly very bitter, but if you've never tasted it, you've just got somebody else's saying that it is. And he illustrates that by saying it's only experienced by the Nagas, Gao and Jogpo. So Nagas are sea creatures, and maybe that's what they like to live on. I don't know. I mean, Tilopa used to eat this stuff, to show that he could eat it. So Tilopa had this experience of the bile of the fish. But normally we would not eat the bile of the fish because it's so bitter, unless you were like Gao and Jogpa or Tilopa. The powerful turquoise dragon in the north certainly has greatness and strength, but again, you wouldn't know that for yourself unless you'd vied with this dragon, such as did the champions Laga and Luga. So Laga and Luga were extremely strong men, so strong that they were entrusted with transporting the Jowo Shakyamuni Buddha along with the Princess Khandro when she was sent to marry the Tibetan king Songtsen Gampo. So they transported this huge Buddha and with the princess. They were so strong. So that's why they're used in that metaphor. Now, the milk of the lioness in the east must be poured with a ladle of precious gold, and it cannot be poured into an ordinary container. If you do pour it into an ordinary container, the container will break and its contents will spill. So now we're getting a bit more into the metaphor of filling the precious Dharma, filling the student with the precious Dharma, who is going to then be the holder of the lineage. But if you don't have the right person, then the person is the container in this metaphor. So the container will break, it will be too much for that person, and then the Dharma will be lost. And then he goes to talk about the key instructions of Lords Naropa and Maitripa, certainly very profound. Though this is so, there's nothing profound before one has meditated. You won't be able to get it. You won't be able to understand it. You might say, oh yes, it's very profound because you've heard it's very profound. But until you have that experience, it's just a glimpse, or not even not fully experienced. Only after meditating can one understand its profundity. And by meditating, he doesn't mean just say the odd hour here and there. He means meditating like he meditated, like he himself, Milarepa, meditated. That's what you need, that kind of dedication and commitment and diligence. And only after that can one understand its profundity. And then he says, my father, Marpa, has received those instructions, and I, Milarepa, have meditated upon them. So the lineage has been passed on to me, And now, I can pass it on. A few words of Milarepa's meditative experience, though they certainly will liberate the vital points, are not given to unworthy vessels. He's talking to the disciples who have already reached, a good level, but they're not at that level yet. And they need to be taken down a peg or two to realize that they're not at that level. Otherwise, he would have given it. So he doesn't need their reminders, in other words. If a worthy vessel comes, I will give them freely. If my son, the teacher, arrives, I will give them to him. So it's not just if. He knows that the teacher is coming. The teacher physician. Sometimes he's called the teacher, sometimes the physician, sometimes the monk, sometimes the Lord. He's got a lot of names that he can be referred to. All of them are very kind of high names. So thus he sang. Now, we cut back to Gampopa. So we change scene back to Gampopa. So what's happening to him while all this is going on? So you remember that he keeps having these visions of the yogi, despite what the monks have told him to do. But he's enjoying it because it's getting him, further on with the Dharma. So at that time, the precious Lord, to become Gampopa, has gone out of the monastery for a while to do some circumambulations. Now that year there was a great famine in the land, and below the monastery gate there were 3 beggars there hoping to receive something. They were hanging around outside the monastery hoping some of the monks would maybe come and give them something to eat. So these 3 beggars are chatting to each other. One of them said, "Oh, how wonderful it would be if, for the sake of this year's famine, this evening the excellent Sangha of Yachakri were to give out food as charity to everyone." They were wishful thinking that maybe they would come, the monks, and give food to everyone. If they did not discriminate against anyone who comes for the distribution, we could be included among them, because they know they're just raggy old beggars, and maybe they've been sort of marginalized by the ordinary people. But even we could get some if they don't discriminate against us. Then, after each of us ate our fill, we could gather some bits of leftover sampa and go over near Yachakri and enjoy ourselves as much as we liked by eating what we collected. So they're dreaming about this. Another of the beggars says, "I have a better idea that's easier to fulfill than yours. Wouldn't it be nice if we could gather up 1 dre or so of greens, whether ripe or not?" Dre, I think it's a measure. Gather up this 1 dre. Dre is also a female yak, so I'm not sure if it means as much as could be put on a yak or if it's a measure. But anyway, it's a big quantity of greens. So if we could gather up 1 dre of greens, whether ripe or not, and then we add some chili, and we cook it, and we make a big pot of soup and eat it, and then go back inside to rest. And they're having this lovely dream. The elder of the 3 beggars say, "We're men. Even if we're hungry, we should still smile and laugh. If a bird is hungry, it will still soar like a Garuda. Don't be so focused on your bellies. There is a monk who is pure coming to do circumambulations at the mountain in the west. If he heard us talk like this, it would be shameful. If you want to make an aspiration, you should make it a big aspiration. Aspire to be an immaculate descendant of the luminous deities, a Dharma king who spreads the Buddhist teachings throughout the land of Tibet, the land of snows. To be a sovereign, a king like Sede, would be indeed wonderful. To rule the land of Tibet in this life would be great. Or consider the Lord of Yogis, Milarepa, in the western Lachi snow mountain, who lives on the food of austerity and samadhi, wearing just a single cloth, and survives with the heat of Tumo, Chandali Tumo. He meditates day and night and remains in the state of luminous Mahamudra. When he moves to different places, he goes by flying through the air. To be in his presence would be the greatest thing. How wonderful it would be to renounce this life and practice as he does. Or else, even just to see his face would be so wonderful. As he spoke, tears began streaming down his face. You get the feeling that he was a bit more switched on than the other two beggars. He was really so moved by his own vision. At that moment, when he heard the Jetson's name, Gampopa, who was by now quite close enough to be in earshot, and he heard him talking about Milarepa, Gampopa uncontrollably gave rise to great faith. So great was his feeling that he fainted. There and then he just fainted on the spot, just hearing the name of Milarepa. And he didn't regain consciousness until midnight, so he was out cold for quite some time. When he came to, while shedding many tears of emotion, he stood up and prostrated in the direction of where the Jetsun resided. Many times he supplicated, "Jetsun, Jetsun, please accept me." So just hearing the name of Milarepa, he knew that that's who his teacher was. It awoke something in him. Just hearing that from the beggar, and then he was out cold and unconscious, but who knows what state he was actually in. And then, "Jetsun, please accept me." He's already asking Jetsun to accept him as his pupil, this very high Bodhisattva monk. Then he performed the 7-branch prayer, the main practice of virtuous activity, and had experiences and samadhi, unlike state of grace, unlike anything that had ever arisen before. The next morning, thinking, "Will I meet the Guru Jetsun?" He called the 3 beggars. They were still hanging around outside the monastery. He gave them quality food, meat and butter and so forth, much more than they'd asked for. The beggars were completely satiated, and then the Lord, yet to be Gampopa, said, "I wish to meet this Guru that you speak of. It seems you know a lot about him. Could you please lead me to him? In my stash of wealth I have 16 measures of gold, and I will give you half, which you can use to practice the Dharma yourselves." The 2 younger beggars replied, "We don't really know anything about this Guru." But the elder one said, "I can help you." And so, accompanied by the beggar, he left the monastery. He said goodbye to his gurus who had been kind to him, to the monks, and accompanied by the old beggar, he departed with great faith and diligence, and he went along saying, "When will I meet my Guru?" with tears constantly streaming down his face. He was in a state of absolute yearning. And when it was time to eat, he had no appetite. He journeyed on, forgetting to rest. He just couldn't wait. He was just kept going. When they arrived at Sinesar in Upper Nyang, the old man, the beggar, who maybe now we're starting to think that maybe there was a bit more to this old man than the ordinary beggars, the old man pretended to be sick, and he said, "I'm not very familiar with the way from here, but there is a monastery called Sakya up ahead. You could go there and ask for help." So he said, "I've come far enough now, you better go on, but you could go to the monastery first and ask for help." So with his companion, the beggar, having abandoned him, the Lord, or Gampopa, suffered as he wandered the plain like a blind man. He felt lost now. He didn't know what he was doing. And throughout the night he wept with his face to the ground. The old beggar appeared to him, again in a kind of vision, and said to him, "Son, you have almost made it. Don't cry like this. I will show you the way." Much later, Gampopa came to have confidence that the beggar was an emanation of the Jetsun himself. So he was being guided by Milarepa to Milarepa. So he carries on and he goes along, and he's so tired. He's hardly eaten. He's really tired, but he can't stop walking. and his whole body's aching from top to bottom, and he's thinking, oh, if I can't meet the Jetson in this life, in the next life I will be born in the presence of the Jetson, wherever he is. May my mind completely mix with his. And so he was making this aspiration in case he died before, because he was pretty sick by this time. And thinking this, he shed many tears and supplicated resolutely. Then one day, a Kadampa teacher, someone from the Kadampa lineage, from Jayul came and asked Gampopa, where are you going? He said, I'm going towards Drin to meet Jetsun Milarepa in person. And this Kadampa said, well, I too am going in that direction. Then he asked, are you not sick? You're looking a bit sick, you know. And he said, Gampopa said, my body is not well at all. I'm also very thirsty. Could you please give me some water? The teacher gave him a bowl of water that he drank to the last drop. After that, he felt fully refreshed, and on they went together. Meanwhile, back at the Jetson. Now, so at this time, Milarepa is teaching at Tashi Gang and was in a very happy mood. Well, he knows what's coming, doesn't he? So he's happy. So while he was teaching, he would suddenly stop and meditate for a bit, and then sometimes he would just burst into laughter. One of the benefactors of Drin there, a female benefactor who was a qualified student named Zeze, said to Jetsun, Jetsun, sometimes while you're teaching us, you sit there meditating, and sometimes you laugh. Is it because you think of the qualities of suitable disciples, and sometimes you think of the mistaken thoughts of those unsuitable disciples? Is that what's making you laugh? And Milarepa replies, I'm not thinking of the qualities of suitable disciples or the faults of unsuitable ones. Then, Jetsun, why is it that you laugh? Because my son, the teacher from U, arrived at Dingri today, where he sat against a bench. His entire body was in pain, and he called out, Guru Jetsun, please look upon me, please help me. And with great faith and devotion, he shed many tears. Having compassion for him, I blessed him through my samadhi, through my state of grace. I have power. Geography doesn't matter about this. You can bless someone from a great distance. And then I became very happy, and so I laughed. So the Jetsun, he wept with tears of laughter and sort of feeling. So then the woman said, when will he come into the Jetsun's presence then? He will arrive, says Milarepa, he will arrive by the evening of the day after tomorrow. She asks, do we have the karmic fortune to be able to meet this man? Yes, you do, he replied. Whoever puts down a seat for him when he first arrives will be sustained by samadhi, a state of grace. Whoever meets and guides him upon his arrival, I will lead to the domain of liberation and great bliss. So whoever performs these duties, in a way, will be rewarded in the best way possible. Meanwhile, back with Gampopa. Gampopa and the Kadampa of Jayul arrived at the center of the marketplace. So they are near to this town, or in the town, and there they see a Lady Benefactor was weaving, sitting at the head of her loom. Gampopa goes up to her and asks, it is said that the Lord of Yogis, one called Milarepa, is staying in this land. Do you know where he resides? The Lady Benefactor asked, where do you come from? She wants to make sure who he is. I am from the sunlight region of U, and U is the name of the place, it's a U with an umlaut, and have come to see the Jetsun, he replied. She thinks. Then I will give you some provisions. Please come inside. So she brings him into her house, and then going inside, she gives them a seat and serves them sweetened tea and lots of other provisions. So he hasn't eaten since God knows when, but so she's plying him with all this nice food. And then she said, the Jetsun knew ahead of time that you would be coming, and also gave a prophecy about the future. Yesterday, he saw that you were fatigued and sent you blessings through his samadhi. I requested to come and usher you to meet him. Gampopa thought, that is true. He remembered what happened. So because of the Guru's blessing, I did not die. I was so close to death. And then when I really prayed to him, he came to me and I felt so good. And he knew that I was coming and that I'm a destined disciple. Thinking like this, a little bit of pride arose in his mind. Just a bit, but it was pride. I'm a destined disciple. The Jetson knew this, and in order to break his pride, he did not permit a meeting with him for half a month, for 2 weeks. The teacher, Benefactor, one of the Repas there, his disciples, then brought Gampopa an earthen pot and some wood and set him up to stay in a small cave on the cliff. So he gave him a few things and, right, you go and wait in there for 2 weeks. He didn't know it was going to be 2 weeks, but that's what happened. That got rid of the pride, presumably. After the 2 weeks, the Lady Benefactor ushered him in to meet the Jetson. And when he came into the Milarepa's presence, the Jetson blessed both Rinchen and Shiwa-o, transforming their appearance into his own. So they all looked the same. They all looked like Milarepa, 3 of them. And then they sat down. Now, Gampopa was unable to say which one was the real Jetson, because the 3 people looked exactly the same. So Rinchen, pointing with his finger, said, the Jetson is in the center. And with that, Gampopa made a mandala offering with the 16 measures of gold that he'd brought from when he was a doctor and had some money. He brought all these 16 measures of gold and offered them to Milarepa, and a block of tea, which was precious in those days, block of tea to the Jetson in the middle. And after that, he related his journey from in detail. So he told Milarepa all about what had happened, even though Milarepa knew, but he related his journey and expressed himself. And then he said, Jetson, I ask you, please, will you tell me your life story? By life story, he means his life of liberation, how he became who he is. The Jetson, the Great Jetson, sat for a while with his eyes half open. Then he took a small piece of gold from the center of the mandala that Gampopa had offered and threw it into the sky and said, an offering to Marpa of Lodrak. So he offered the gold to his teacher. Then from the sky came inconceivable light and sound and so forth. It was just these amazing sort of manifestations happened. Like luminous, kind of like a sonny lumiere, but spiritual. And the Jetson took a skull cup. He had a cup made from a skull, and it was full of liquor, and this is alcoholic liquor of some kind. And he drank some, and then he passed it to Gampopa. He said, here, drink the rest. And he gave it to him. Now we have to remember Gampopa was a fully ordained monk, so he wasn't allowed to drink alcohol. And especially standing in the middle of a crowd of people, and he couldn't accept it. So the Jetson Milarepa said, don't think so much, just drink. And then, afraid of missing the auspicious connection, the tender of this auspicious connection, Gampopa drank the whole contents without leaving a single drop, thus taking hold of the lineage. Symbolic of taking hold of the lineage. Knowing this, and that he was a suitable vessel for all the key instructions without any left out, Milarepa asked, what is your name? Sanam Rinchen, he replied. You have accumulated great masses of merit and are most precious among sentient beings. And the Jetson, he said this 3 times. It was like he called Marpa to be present. He'd called the lineage to be present, you know. It wasn't just an ordinary meeting. So he said it 3 times, and then the Jetsons thought, whoever hears the name of my son will be liberated from samsara. Whoever even hears that name, but I should not speak of this now. Then the Jetsons said to the teacher from that you have come here out of faith for me is truly marvelous. But I have no desire for your gold or your tea. My life story is like this. This was in answer to to Gampopa's request to hear his life story. And so then Rinchen and Shiwa both accompanied Milarepa in him singing this song of realization and welcome. In the unfabricated sky of Dharmakaya, clouds of unceasing compassion gather. Destined refuge and protector of beings, I bow at the feet of Marpa so kind. Seated on my right is my son Rinchen. On my left is seated Shiwa. Those on both left and right join me in singing. Laje, now please listen to our song. In the glorious and stainless pure realm, there were many who spoke highly of themselves, but the two, Naropa and Maitripa, are renowned in the central land of India and illuminate it like the sun and moon. The heart son of these two father Siddhas, embodiment of the Buddhas of the 3 times essence, is the translator Marpa. Because he is chief of the mandala, this fortunate one who ravishes the mind is renowned among the Dakas and Dakinis. Hearing his name, I could not resist it, and through great efforts I went to him. As soon as we met, I obtained joy and bliss. Bowing at his lotus feet, I requested the profound key instructions for attaining Buddhahood in this very life. My father Buddha replied, "There is an instruction that is like a mother, a guide that in this very life cuts the continuum of samsara. This was taught out of the compassion of Naropa. Since I was poor, I had no material things, but striving with my 3 gates, I fulfilled my Samye. Through the compassion of he who knows the 3 times, and because he knew my altruistic intent, with great love he thought of me. I will teach you the key instructions of the 4 lineage transmissions without adding to them or taking away." Making this oath, thus he gave them. Now, in this age of corrupted teachings, there are many adverse conditions. There is no leisure in this life. So without getting lost in conceptual knowledge, engage in the essential practice, he said. To repay the kindness of my guru, I cracked the whip of the fear of death. Then, through the power of meditating with great diligence, I made concepts and bad omens my friends. Because the true nature of the 3 poisons is awareness, the spontaneous presence of the 3 kayas was pointed out. In order to transfer all experience and realization to qualified students, the lineage's blessing of the key instructions include all that is profound. Teacher, I bestow them upon you. Practice them and make the teachings flourish. Laje, while keeping this in your heart, please don't be rigid, just rest and relax. The story of this yogi is just like that. We can speak about it slowly and thoroughly. Gold is not agreeable for an old man like me, and I have no stove to boil your tea. If you want to hold the Kagyu Lineage teachings, look at my conduct and practice like me. The teacher's question was answered in this song. So, this is the very first teaching that Milarepa gives to Gampopa, and it does tell not his life story, like, oh, I did this when I was that age, and I went there, and I did that. It's just giving him the key points that got him to be who he is. His life of liberation, that's what he's talking about, not the mundane side of life. So let's look at it in some more detail. So, in the unfabricated sky of Dharmakaya, clouds of unceasing compassion gather. The sky of Dharmakaya is the mind, the Buddha mind. You could say the Buddha mind. It's It's not made, it's not fabricated. It is as it is. Clouds of unceasing compassion gather. So it is a mind of compassion. It's made of compassion, you could say. You cannot really describe what the Buddha mind, it's not possible to describe it, so I'm just giving some kind of little flavor of what it says here, because it talks about sky and cloud, but these are kind of adjectives that are kind of metaphors for something indescribable, but the Dharmakaya, the body of truth, the body of the mind of the Buddha. Destined refuge and protector of beings, I bow at the feet of Marpa so kind. So he's addressing Marpa, he's addressing his teacher, whom he holds as the Buddha. Bows at the feet. He's the refuge and he's the protector. He bows at his feet. Then he says, on my right is my son Rinchen, on my left is Shiwa O. And they're both going to join me in singing. Lajie, now please listen to our song. Lajie, physician, so listen to our song. So you can imagine that the others, they know his life, and they probably joined in at some points. In the glorious and stainless pure realm, there were many who spoke highly of themselves, but the two, Naropa and Maitripa, are renowned in the central land of India and illuminate it like the sun and moon. So in the pure realm, like Dewa Chen we could say, in the pure realm, there were many who spoke highly of themselves, who were high beings and perhaps spoke like that. But Naropa and Maitripa, who were the forefathers of the Kagyu lineage, but at that point there wasn't a thing called the Kagyu lineage. So Naropa, you remember, was the pupil of Tilopa. So these highly realized beings, and Maitripa, are renowned in the central land of India. So throughout India they're known. And they illuminate it like the sun and moon. They brought the teachings, the truth, to the land of India. And the heart sun of these two father siddhis, so these are like the two great masters, and their heart sun was Marpa. Marpa the translator, who went to India from Tibet and got teachings from both of them. And so he became the recipient of everything that they could teach. Because he is chief of the mandala, this kind of sacred realm, this fortunate one who ravishes the mind. I think it's kind of like he's when that's the way Milarepa feels about him. He's completely in awe and aglow with love for him. You know, he's enchanted, almost. You know. This fortunate one who ravishes the mind is renowned amongst all the Dakas and Dakinis. So beings in different realms, the Dakas, the Dakinis, in all the different realms, even the realms we can't see, he's famous throughout those realms. And so hearing his name, I, meaning Milarepa, I could not resist. I couldn't hold myself back. I needed to see. I needed to go to him. Just through hearing his name, and so through great efforts, I went to him. And we know something about the early life of Milarepa. So he had a very, very difficult life. But when he heard about Marpa, that's changed everything for him, and he went to great efforts to be in his presence. And as soon as we met, I obtained joy and bliss, just bowing at his lotus feet. And I requested the profound key instructions for attaining Buddhahood in this very life. Now, he's not going into all the details of how Marpa disciplined him and made him, pay off his karmic debts for all the bad deeds that he'd done and all of that, which we've spoken about previously in previous episodes, you could say. So he's just taking it from this point where he knows what he needs. He's with Marpa and he's asking for the instruction. And so my father Buddha, he talks of Marpa in that way, my father Buddha, replied, "There is an instruction that is like a mother, a guide that in this very life cuts the continuum of samsara, and this was taught out of the compassion of Naropa." So he asks Marpa for these teachings, and Marpa says, yes, this exists. It's like a mother, it will take care of you. It's a guide that will see you through this life, and not only that, but cut through all the delusions of samsara. And it was taught out of the compassion of his teacher Naropa. So he's basically saying he's got the lineage, and yes, it exists, and yes, I am able to give it to you. So Milarepa then says, since I was poor, I had no material things. He wants to offer something to Marpa, but he didn't have anything. He was penniless. I had no material things, but striving with my 3 gates, I fulfilled my Samye. Striving with his body, speech, and mind. And my goodness, how he strived with his body, speech, and mind. With his body, he built towers and then took them down and built them again and just paid up all his bad karma in that way. He did whatever, however crazy it seemed. To others it did seem crazy, but not to him. And he did whatever Marpa asked of him. And with his body, with his speech, with his mind, he fulfilled his Samye, his commitment to Marpa. And through the compassion of he who knows the 3 times, Marpa, who knows past, present, and future, and through his compassion, and because he knew my altruistic intent, because I wasn't just doing this for me, I was doing it out of bodhicitta, my altruism. With great love, he thought of me. He came to see me in that way. And he says, I will teach you the key instructions of the 4 lineage transmissions without adding to them or taking away. So once Milarepa's karma had been purified and he was ready, then Marpa lovingly, willingly transmitted everything to him, without leaving anything out, without adding anything, just as it is pure teachings of the transmissions without. And so making this oath, thus he gave them. Now in this age of corrupted teachings, there are many adverse conditions. There is no leisure in this life. So, without getting lost in conceptual knowledge, engage in the essential practice. This is what Marpa said to him. So he'd given him all the instructions without holding anything back. He said, now you need to meditate. You've got everything you need, but you still aren't there because you have to experience it. So you need to meditate. He said, there's so many corrupted teachings, there's so many adverse conditions. Even these great instructions won't be of use to you unless you've meditated and you've experienced them for yourself. So, to repay the kindness of my guru, I cracked the whip of the fear of death, meaning, he put himself in dangerous places, and he went up into mountains and wild animals, and normal person would find that very scary and dangerous and wouldn't want to do that, but he cracked the whip of the fear of death. He became fearless, basically. And then, through the power of meditating with great diligence, I made concepts and bad omens my friends. So in the previous verse, Marpa is saying, don't get lost in concepts. That just leads you up the wrong path. And so when concepts and bad omens occurred to him when he was meditating or sitting in the cave, Milarepa, there would be these fearsome visual beings that would appear, or things appearing to him that were very kind of, could distract him and take him on the wrong path. And instead of being afraid of them or making up for them or things like that, he just saw through them. And he said, oh, come on, sit down and be my friend in here. And he was seeing right through them. And there are many stories about Milarepa doing that, He said, come and sit down, don't be worried. We can sit and have a cup of tea together. And he would talk like that. So they lost all their power, because their power is fear. But if you're not afraid, then they have no power. So they just sort of dissipate away. So, and because the true nature of the three poisons is awareness, the spontaneous presence of the three kayas was pointed out. So the poisons of the mind, the deluded mind, when seen through, are the opposite, become the means for liberation. So you shouldn't throw them out. Basically, you should look at them, make these whatever, like it may be attachment, or it might be, pride, or it could be ignorance, or the attachment, the main poisons, whatever they are, if what that seeming poison is purified with the understanding and by meditation, then they are seen to be in their true nature. This is hard for us to understand, isn't it? But it's like their true nature is awareness. It's like we are, for example, we take ourselves as a metaphor. So we are not Buddha yet, but we have the seed of Buddha within us. And when all our pure poisons are seen through and purified, we are Buddha. So it's like that. It's the same thing, actually. It's just that we think of it in our body, but it's just like that, however it is, wherever it is. So the spontaneous presence of the three kayas was pointed out. They were never not there. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha was always there, but hidden by concept and wrong views and the mind poisons, which are all the wrong views. So when you've understood that and seen through that, then what was already there becomes apparent, i.e. Buddhahood. Sounds easy. Of course it's not easy to do this, but that's how it is. No, that's my understanding of how it is. Quite different. In order to transfer all experience in realization to qualified students, the lineage's blessing of the key instructions include all that is profound. Teacher, I bestow them upon you. Practice them and make the teachings flourish. Lajje, while keeping this in your heart, please don't be rigid, just rest relaxed. I think that speaks for itself. I have all these lineage instructions. You're a worthy vessel. I'm going to give them to you in the same way that Marpa gave them to me. I give them to you. These are the key instructions. It includes everything that is profound. There is nothing beyond this. And then he gives this little bit of advice. Don't get too uptight with it, or just relax, Don't, because he's a study. Of course, you can. Oh my goodness, you could get a bit kind of worried about all this, But just relax, Don't be rigid about it. Rest in awareness. And the story of this yogi, Milarepa, is just like that. We can speak about it sort of later. We'll go into it a bit more detail, slowly and thoroughly. We can go into it a bit, but essentially that's how it is. And by the way, the gold that you've offered, it's not agreeable for an old man like me. I don't need it. What am I supposed to do with it? It's not agreeable. And I've got no stove to boil your tea. If you want to hold the Kagyu teachings. You don't need to make me these offerings. Basically, if you want to hold the Kagyu teachings, look at my conduct and practice like me. That's what you need to do. The teacher's question was answered in this song. So that was the key points of his life, and this is who I am, and this is what I've done, and now this is for you to continue. So, we do need to remember that this is one fully enlightened being talking to another who is almost fully enlightened, and we're not quite there yet. So, if there's some things that that's what we need to do, is we need to study. Everything that he's teaching is what we need to do. Of course, we're not at the stage of Gampopa yet, but if you don't do anything, then you never will be. If we don't make a start from wherever we are, we're not have to say, I've got the lineage to carry in. No, we're not there yet. We just do our prostrations, we do our practice, we do our guru yoga, wherever we're at, that's what we do, and we meditate. Because without that, this is just a fairy story. It's just listen with mother. So we need to take it on board for ourselves, Thus he sang. And he said, this is my welcome for the teacher. He still comes as teacher, doctor, Laji, whatever. The Lord, that's Gampopa, then brewed some tea. He still decided he can still brew his tea and offered it. And the Jetsun did enjoy it immensely. And then he said to Rinchen and the others, we should offer the teacher some tea in return. Go and get some. So they went to get some tea and they brewed it. And we need to add some seasoning. And he added some cool water. And the tea took on a superior flavour. Now there's a little incident here, but I would quite like to read it because it's very indicative of the situation. So at that point, the monk from Jayul, you remember the Kadampa monk? He was still kind of around in the gathering. And so he requested blessings from the Jetsun, and to make a Dharma connection with him, the Jetsun said, well, whatever object of attachment you have, offer it to me for a blessing. He doesn't need offerings, but he said it would make like a good connection. And the Kadampa monk said, oh, I haven't got anything to offer. The Jetsun said to him, you are hiding lots of gold on your body, but you claim to have nothing. Such a shame. What use is a blessing with no faith, or key instructions without any certainty? Furthermore, you've come here for the sake of wool trade. It was like doing a bit of wheeling and dealing. Go on, may you have no obstacles in your endeavours. And he tells them to get lost, basically. Gampopa thought, when in the presence of the Jetsun, there's no place for pretense or hypocrisy. One needs to have a focused and present mind. And with this, he never became separate from the perception of Milarepa as a Buddha. So he saw through this incident of the guy trying to deceive Milarepa. Oh, I've got nothing on me, but he's going to have a blessing. So you've got loads of gold on you. And he did. And he said, you just here for the wool trade. May you have a good life. Go on, off you go. You can't give him the blessing. What for? He's got no faith, basically. And he exposes himself in a way, but Milarepa sees right through him. And that shows Gampopa also how, you can't mess with this Lama. He knows everything. There's no hiding place. So then Milarepa asks Gampopa, he says, by the way, he says, in all your doings, did you receive any empowerments, abhishekas? Have you got any empowerments? And Gampopa relayed that he had received some abhishekas and key instructions from previous gurus, and told of how samadhi had arisen in his mind stream. And the Jetsun burst out, he said, if you squeeze sand, you will not get oil. So he was a bit dismissive of that. But But then he went on to elaborate and said, you will only get oil from the mustard seeds. So you need to press the seeds to get the oil, not just from sand. It kind of reminds you of Tilopa, who would press the sesame seeds to get oil. And so he says to Gampopa, meditate on my Achung Chandali, that's the Tumo and the practice of Tumo, and then you will see the essence of mind. For this practice, I'm not saying that the empowerments you received before are unqualified, but because the great power of tendril of destined connection is involved with us, you must have the blessings of my tradition. So he's saying, look, I'm not saying that what you've had before is bad or not good to have, but what you actually need is because of our connection, and it's our destined connection, not just a casual connection. Tendril is like very meaningful. You must have the blessing of this tradition. Then, in accord with the tradition of the whispered lineage, which means the Kagyu lineage, remember the other one was the Kadampa, he's not dissing the Kadampa in any way, but he needs to have the Kagyu lineage blessings. So in accordance with the whispered lineage, with the Sindura mandala is a mandala made with Sindura is like red earth. It's red earth from a particular place, and it's used in offerings and special ceremonies. So Milarepa gave him the blessing of Vajrayogini. It's also very much associated with Vajrayogini, which is the principal deity, meditational deity of the Kagyu lineage. So he was basically blessing him with Vajrayogini, and he was given the key instructions, and excellent experiences arose for him through meditation. Recollecting the instructions of his previous gurus, Gampopa did much analysis of the view, the meditation and conduct in order to cut through all doubts and uncertainties towards the Jetsun. So any remaining little doubts that he had were cut through. And then afterwards, sometime later, he requested the key points of view, meditation and conduct directly. And the Jetsun cleared away all remaining uncertainties. And after that, Milarepa sang this song of realization on the greatness of the secret mantra in general, and in particular of the Kagyu practice lineage. So we come to the third song. With certainty in the view, look at your mind. If you search for something outside of the mind, it's like a strong man looking for wealth. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? With certainty in meditation, don't dismiss the faults of dullness and torpor. If you dismiss the faults of dullness and torpor, it's like lighting a lamp in the middle of the day. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? With certainty in conduct, don't think of what to adopt or reject. If you think of what to adopt and reject, it's like a bee getting caught in a trap. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? With certainty in Samye, rest in confidence of the view. If you don't rest in confidence and look for some other Samye, it's like a river flowing back upstream. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? With certainty in fruition, rouse certainty in mind. If you search for some other unobtainable fruition, it's like a frog leaping into the sky. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? With certainty in the Guru, ask your own mind. If you search for another Guru apart from that, then you are abandoning your own mind. Is it not like that, my dear teacher physician? Thus, all appearances are subsumed in one's mind. Is it not like that, my dear teacher position? So let's go into that with a bit more detail. So, he's saying, when you have certainty in the view, it's not just something you know a bit about, but when you really understand the view, when you have that much certainty, look at your mind. Where else is it going to be? If you search for something outside of the mind, it's like a strong man looking for wealth. Is that not like that, my dear teacher position? So it means like, if you're looking for it somewhere else other than your mind, you're looking in the wrong place. It's like a strong person that's got everything, but they're looking somewhere else for what they need. It's in your mind. So you need to be certain of that, certain of the view. Look at your mind. With certainty in meditation, don't dismiss the thoughts of dullness and torpor. If you dismiss the thoughts of dullness and torpor, it's like lighting a lamp in the middle of the day. So it's like, okay, so you're doing your meditation and then you get dull and you get busy or you get bothered in some way, or you get sleepy, and then I mustn't put that to one side, I mustn't get like that, I've got to meditate, And so that's, again, you're not looking at the right. Look at the dullness, look at the torpor, look at the business, look at whatever is happening. Because when you see through that, that's where you need to be looking. That's exactly what you need to see, what's going on. Not have some contrived idea of what meditation is and that's what you're aiming for, but you're not really looking at what's happening in your mind. Because when you see through that, that's where what you're seeking is. Is it not like that? Otherwise, it's like lighting a lamp in the middle of the day. It's pointless. In the middle of the day, you don't need a lamp, do you? And you don't need to look elsewhere other than your mind. With certainty in conduct. So you've heard about all these things. So all these things are about having certainty, being really certain, not, we talk about the lamp of certainty, don't we? The torch of certainty, not the torch of a bit uncertain from time to time. You have to have certainty is what you need. Absolute full certainty, confidence. With certainty in conduct, don't think of what to adopt or reject. If you think of what to adopt and reject, it's like a bee getting caught in a trap. If you have certainty in the right conduct, then you don't need to think about what to adopt and reject, because you're certain. So you don't need to keep rehashing it. Oh, should I do this or should I do that? If you've got that certainty, you don't need to keep doing that. Otherwise, you're getting caught up in the concepts of maybe this, maybe it's like that, and what other people are saying, and I've heard this. And so then that's not certain, is it? You can be swayed by the mundane views and concepts and all this, and then it's like this bee getting caught in a trap, not knowing which way to look, because you don't have that certainty. You just get caught up in concepts and stuff. With certainty in Samye, in the state of meditation, in that state of grace and awareness, rest in confidence of the view. If you don't rest in confidence and look for some other kind of Samye, it's like a river flowing back upstream. So let's say you're resting and you're in the confidence of the view, but then you think, oh, maybe this is something else I should be doing. And then you try and do something else. You look some other place. I'm not sure if this is it. Maybe I should try something else. It's like you're flowing back upstream. You just, pointless exercise. That's no longer your Samye anymore. You've broken the Samye. You're looking for some other kind of commitment. Samye is commitment to the view, really. So be confident in it. And the same with fruition, with certainty in fruition. rouse certain, you know about fruition, rouse certainty in the mind. The fruition is in your mind. It's of the mind. It's not different from the mind. If you search for some other unobtainable, you've heard that so-and-so says that, some unobtainable fruition of some other thing, then it's like a frog leaping into the sky. You're just leaping up and down for no apparent reason. Is it not like that, my dear teacher position? With certainty in the Guru, ask your own mind. If you search for another Guru apart from that, then you are abandoning your own mind. So where is this Guru? The Guru is your own mind. Of course, you need a Guru to point an outer Guru to point the way, to tell you that I'm your Guru and I'm telling you this. So there is a such thing as an outer Guru, but ultimate Guru is your own mind. Like the Buddha said, even the Buddhas cannot make you enlightened. You have to make yourself enlightened. I can point the way, I can show you how it's done, but ultimately it's up to you. And how? Look in your own mind. Nobody can do that for you. So that's basically what Milarepa is saying, the same thing. You don't abandon your mind, don't look for somebody else's mind or whatever. Is it not like that, my dear teacher? Position. Thus, all appearances are subsumed in one's mind. Everything, all manifestations are within one's mind. Everything you need is in your mind. The mind is your ultimate Guru. I, as your Guru, am telling you that your mind is the ultimate Guru. Is it not like that, my dear teacher position? Thus he sang, and Gampopa thought, this is so true. Perseverance developed for him, and he meditated. And he meditated a lot. So we'll meditate a little bit and just digest these words of Milarepa's and, feel part of this lineage. We have the blessing to be receiving these words of wisdom. So now let's just sit and meditate and remember what Milarepa said. Don't strain yourself. Relax. Be at ease. And allow the wisdom of these words of the lineage masters sink in and arouse some kind of confidence without striving, without making a big effort, just resting in awareness. So obviously when you're meditating at home, you need to do it for longer than that. And become regular in your practice. That's the way you become familiar with it, become familiar with your mind, and then we're putting into practice these teachings, because otherwise we're just listening to a story. So it's to use, it's for of course for Gampopa to use, but it's also for us to use. So we just need to use it. Otherwise it's like he says, it's like if we put it into a modern metaphor, you can say, oh look, I've got the keys to this new car, here's the new car, here's the keys. You can go anywhere you want. And then you think, oh, but I don't know how to drive. You don't learn how to drive, or you don't bother to get in the car, or for whatever reason you don't use it. So it's kind of like that. Is it not like that, my dear? My dear friends. So yes, it's up to us. Obviously, it's always up to us. So the next episode, if you like, will be the last one of this, and so we're going to skip all the quite a lot of the things with Gampopa and Milarepa, because they're all very much to do with Gampopa's practice, and I think we need to get on with our practice, because they're kind of very personal to his level of realization. So. And also I think it would be good to, there aren't that many of them, there aren't as many songs, but the songs that there are very long and complex in terms of, for us, but because he's already so highly evolved, there's not so many as compared to, say, Rinchen, where they were together for a long time. So once he'd got the instructions, he could go and meditate, basically, and then go and practice, and then spread the Dharma, so there was less in terms of volume. But we'll do some very important ones in the next episode. In the meantime, do please go into these ones that we've done more thoroughly, because there's only so much we can do in the space of an hour and a half, or whatever it is that we've been together. Maybe it's more like 2 hours, I suppose. But anyway, look into them for yourself, because what I say is just what I've come to understand, and I actually love to share them, because that does make me really look into them. And so if you think, well, you should share them, or you want to share them, and it makes you look into it more detailed than if you're just kind of reading through, oh yeah, that sounds good, and then what's the next one, sort of thing. Use them, and really, because every word, every line is full of meaning, and then you apply them, and then it's, that's what he's talking about, or some glimpse of what he's talking about. And you look in your own mind. James said that in many different ways, hasn't he? So that's what to do. So for now, let's just say the dedication prayer. So our session is good at the end as well as the middle and the beginning. And dedicate the merit and share it with all sentient beings. Oh, by this merit may I obtain omniscience, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and so free all beings from the ocean of samsara, with its stormy waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Okay, so enjoy your practice, relax, don't be too contrived or trying too hard, Just, if you just do it and you be it and you look at your mind, your guru mind, then you'll be there. You'll be there where you already are. Okay, so until the next time, go well, enjoy your practice.